It's Entrepreneur Rap episode 16 on Facebook Live and iTunes. It's your boy, David Brickley, and Brett Regan. A lot to get to on the show today. I think this theme of this show is like failing businesses, and is it really a failure if you fail as a business in certain industries? And I know you have a lot to say about the Cash Me Outside chick, which should be fun.
I got a lot to say about her.
But we will take it way back. It is 2017. If you guys remember, the XFL headed by the WWE's Vince McMahon, he had a deal with NBC where they were going to take on the NFL at their own game with professional football in a sense. I believe they had 8 to 10 teams, and their whole thing was, we're going to give you an all-access look. We're going to be dirty and grit, and we're going to objectify women in a certain way when it comes to cheerleaders and things like that. And saw the 30 for 30. This is the XFL on ESPN, which I recommend it to everybody. It was a really good documentary, but took a few things away from it. And if you remember back then, the first game of the XFL on NBC was a terrible game, just ugly product.
Did you watch?
I think I did.
Okay.
Looking back at it, I was, like 14, 15. But just bad TV. A lot of people say the obituary was written with that game because it was such a bad product. They were hoping at the time for, it's prime time, it's on Saturday, it's on NBC. They were hoping for 25 million viewers. They got 54. That was 25% higher than Game 4 of the MLB NLCS, one of the most successful TV program launches in the history in NBC. So they had a terrible product. They had a bad game, but the marketing worked. Vince McMahon knows what he's doing. The WWE with the NBC, people wanted to see this new brand of football. And if you watch the documentary, the one thing that stuck out was going into week 2, this is what happened. Video.
That game was so exciting, and it was on national TV, NBC.
When we started playing football, it was...
And we will hold for that video to play audio, because I want you to listen to it too.
So was it actual, like legitimate sport event, or was this more along the same lines as wrestling is in the WWE?
No, this was actual professional football. I think right now you look at Sunday Night Football and you got the sky cam and you got the end zone cams and you got everybody's mic'd up. That never happened in football. So XFL came in and said, we want to do the sky cam. We want to get you in the huddle. We want to mic up the coaches. And that all is revolutionary. That ended up sticking at the NFL level. But Vince McMahon, the brilliance of it is they had a pretty good idea in that sense. But their whole marketing was, it's going to be violent. It's going to be the way you want to watch football. And unfortunately, on that first week, the product was just not watchable.
I guess it's hard, though, in my opinion, that you would be able to say, this is how the sport is going to be. It's going to be more hardcore. I guess maybe if the rules change,
without knowing if you have a Tom Brady and Adrian Peterson on the roster.
But I guess if you really open things up and you say you can, hit wherever, and we've got way looser rules, so there's going to be more injuries and harder hits. I guess then you could say that the actual gameplay is going to be different, but it is hard to predict, and I guess that's what the experience was, a little bit of a boring game after hyping it up to be crazy.
You can't hear the audio? Oh, I can play it on. All right. Well, then I need Brett to hear it, though, to get context, but. All right.
So, let's hold on that and see if we can get audio. Do you want to go to the next story, or continue rapping on this?
If someone can run to my desktop, I have it on my computer. I believe it should be on my downloads folder or desktop, but we'll try to get back to it.
Okay. All right. Well, let's move on to the next story. We can come back to that one because I think there's still a lot more to talk about.
So deflating. I wanted to show you.
All right. So in the meantime, pretty exciting news out of GM. Going with the theme of today's show, I think there's so many companies that don't see the writing on the wall long term with how they're going to perform, their competition, the changes in the industry. We've talked about it a lot on this show. Blockbuster is probably the easiest scapegoat to look at and say they did not see Netflix coming. They did not see Redbox coming. They really didn't do a very good job of trying to get ahead of that and corner the market, because when I was growing up, it was basically Blockbuster and then a couple other local ones, but they were the only real national brand. And when I thought about getting a movie, it was always Blockbuster. GM obviously is in a new era now where you've got a lot of different, not just car companies to compete with. You've got the Teslas of the world, which most people would consider hipper, smarter. You've got the Prius type cars, which they haven't done a very good job of getting into that market. And then most importantly, they've
let's just restart. It's the Entrepreneur Wrap, episode 16. Got a little deja vu here. Brett Regan, David Brickley, right here on Facebook Live and iTunes. We're going to jump right into it. We have a good show today. I think a lot of it has to do with, I guess, failing businesses and if that necessarily is a bad thing when it comes to certain industries. And I know you got a huge take on the Cash Me Outside chick, which should be interesting.
Cash it later in the show.
But one thing, I will go to the Wayback Machine. I mean, this is 17 years ago, but something I learned from a 30 for 30 documentary on ESPN. It was called This is the XFL. I don't know how much you remember about the XFL. This is back in 2000.
I remember that it happened, but I'm sure that I didn't watch it, and I really wasn't a WWF or WWE fan.
So Vince McMahon, who leads the WWF at that time, is the WWE now. He had a partnership with Dick Ebersol at NBC Sports, and they wanted to bring a new brand of football to the American audience. Back then, there wasn't the sky cam, there wasn't mic'd up players and mic'd up coaches, and their whole marketing ploy was, we want to give you a new brand of football that's harder hitting, mic'd up players, all access, just football like you've never seen it before. So that first game happens in 2000 on a Saturday night in prime time, and just a terrible game, just a bad product. The guys can't catch the ball. The guys can't run that fast. The quarterback play is bad, and essentially people are saying that's when the obituary was written for the XFL. So at the time, in primetime Saturday, they're hoping for about 20-ish million viewers, and even though it was a bad product, they got 54 million viewers, the most successful TV launch in NBC program history. So that was essentially 25% higher than, I believe, Game 4 of the MLB NLCS at that time. So that's the whole rundown of terrible product, amazing ratings. So they're going to week 2 saying, if we can just fix this product, if the game can be a little bit better, we already have the eyeballs, and this thing is going to be rivaling essentially the NFL as a really great sport. And if you watch the documentary, this segment really hit home, and I wanted to share it here on the podcast.
That game was so exciting, and it was on national TV, NBC.
When we started playing football, it was fabulous.
The energy level in that place was unreal. The hitting was better. The play calling was better.
Play return!
The pass was better. The quality of play was right up there. It was exciting.
13 minutes in, all of a sudden,
the trucks go dead. Oh my God. I'm on battery power, so I'm still hearing things going on, and John Bruno and I are looking at each other. We look at the other cameramen, and they're shaking their heads. They go, they're dead. Nobody really knows what's going on.
no, I'm not sure.
We had no idea what happened.
We go dark.
You have this massive equipment failure in LA. We had to stop the game.
Everybody's running around trying to figure out what's going on. We tested everything, we faxed it, we refaxed it, we rolled it, we re-rolled it, we backed it up, we powered it up. Nothing works.
I insisted that at every XFL game, because we were live on the network, we were going to be reliant on very, very stable, reliable generators.
Finally, the phone call comes. There's not gasoline in the generators.
Somebody hadn't filled the tank.
Well, I wanted to break someone's neck. Come on. Someone didn't check to have enough gasoline in one of those generators. There was no backup. My production people really know what they're doing. I'm assuming this is NBC. What the hell? If my guys know what they're doing, NBC really knows what they're doing.
I was truly happy that was not something the league office was responsible for. The audience dissipates pretty quickly if you don't respond quickly because of the newness of the venture and so many people in positions they hadn't had in the past.
For the better part of 2 minutes, we were showing a trouble slide on the air, which most likely led to a lot of people hitting that remote button.
Whew.
The whole time you're watching that, you're like, oh my goodness.
It's hard not to watch that and get anxious just feeling.
But you
that
start
situation.
off your venture with 54 million people, one of the most successful TV program launches in history. You go into that second week, the product is amazing, everything's looking good, and you watch that documentary, and listen, at the end of the day, the XFL probably would have failed at the end of the day. I think towards the end, like week 10, they had a 1.5 rating instead of a 10 rating, so it went down. But you can't argue that had a lot to do with the eventual downfall of the XFL because somebody forgot to put gas in the generator.
It's one of those things where planning,
that hurts just to watch from any business owner perspective.
Yeah, but from an operating procedure, it's like they had everything. They had the backup generators, they had all the stuff, and all the camera guys seemed to know what they were doing. and for it to come down to a gasoline issue. But now, was it the backup generators that did not have
No,
gas?
everything ran through the generators and powers the backups. Essentially, they plug everything in the generators, then use house power. That way, if house power goes out,
But house power did go out.
Yes, so everything
and so
went
the
out.
house power went out, but it was the backups that weren't going. So even house power to go out, though, was a huge failure.
Right.
But then if you're
Then you're relying on the Great Western Forum, you're relying on the San Diego Sports Arena or whatever, and you just can't. You don't know how well those systems are built. So both WWE and the NBC lost $35 million each in the venture. They tried, again, some brilliant things came out of that. The Skycam miking up players, all that was kind of Vince McMahon and the XFL's idea. They ended up staying. But, as business owners, you hear stories like this and you start to realize, in all aspects of your business, you need SOPs, you need backup plans, because a very silly mistake of somebody not checking if there's gasoline in the generator could be a multi-million or even multi-billion-dollar mistake.
Yeah, I mean, that's one of those problems. We went recently to a live TV LA conference where people that were in the live TV industry were discussing just the stress.
Monday Night Football or Olympics
Everything is leading up to this one moment. And one of the guys that owned an agency that was responsible for a lot of production basically said every single event, your career is on the line.
Yep.
And even though that may not be true, it feels like that. But if you have a huge error of some kind, I mean, this kind of reminds me of the Oscars as well.
Yeah.
Some little tiny thing that seems really
game changer,
like insubstantial, or like, of course I'm not going to forget to put gas in, and it happens on the wrong time of the wrong day. You are done. Your career is over because no one can trust you from that point on. So it's terrifying now that we're doing more production, more live events. Everything is leading up to one day, and in some circumstances, 10 minutes.
Yep.
So it's terrifying, and there's literally no amount of planning.
And I watched that on a plane from Miami back to San Diego here, and just like your reactions while I'm watching the whole thing, I'm like, 2 minutes on NBC, black? Oh.
Well, and my thought is
all the advertisers pull out, and you have to refund the advertisers. And again, you had that 54 million person audience that now is like, I'm done with it. I'm not even going to give you another try.
And the cringe for me is when everyone's like, once they finally, the answer was there's no gasoline. Once you start to realize, okay, that's the actual real problem, who's responsible for the gasoline, that hurts. Because at some point somebody was like, that's me. I did that. I screwed it up. And all of this came down to one person.
And it seems silly even in our company, but at that level, NBC, there's probably people on those shoots that have done thousands and thousands of live sports broadcasts, and to go up to somebody that has been in the game for 25 years that's responsible for checking the gas, like, hey, let's walk up to each generator, make sure there's gas. It's almost insulting. Like, dude, I've been doing this for 25 years. I've done this 2,000 live events. Don't tell me that I didn't check the gas. Like, no, we're going to go with the clipboard. And because if you don't, you have the once in a lifetime or 1% chance that happens, which can essentially be the end of an entire sports venture.
And in general, it's not fair, I think, to put one person in charge of any one thing without having somebody else help them double check. But everybody's job should have somebody else that looks through just to make sure they went through everything and everybody's on the same page. So then if there is a failure, it can be like, how did this happen?
Yeah.
How is it possible that 3 people did not catch whatever?
And to end it all off, I guess the guy in the truck was freaking out when it happened. So he jumps out of the truck onto a pallet that was in a puddle of water, and it splashes. Dick Ebersol and Vince McMahon are in their $2,000 Armani suits or whatever right next to the pallet. So not only is the game off TV, there's no gas and generators, but they're both soaked with muddy water.
When you're that guy, you just got to pack it up, go to the bar, find a new career.
All right, so moving on to subscription Cadillac. This is interesting.
Super interesting. So I'll give a little bit of background on GM. They've been taking some pretty big risks and doing some exciting things because they're looking out into the vehicle space, and they know that they've got competition coming from all angles. Driverless cars, the Ubers of the world, Teslas are the more technology-based vehicles. So GM in January of 2016, after acquiring Sidecar, which was kind of a small-scale Uber competitor, they launched their own rideshare app called Maven. I haven't really seen too much about it. I've never used Maven, but it's trying to be a mini competitor that's all GM vehicles. And then mid-year last year, they invested $500 million into Lyft to develop a network of self-driving cars with ride-sharing service. So those are pretty bold advancements. But with their current fleet, something that they're doing I think is really smart is they've introduced something called Book by Cadillac, which is a vehicle subscription model. So Mike has got the explainer video about a minute long, if we can show that to intro.
Ooh. clean already.
There's a sense of freedom.
Happiness. What we're all looking for in life is happiness.
Book by Cadillac is a transformative way of owning a vehicle.
One day I'm in a CT6. The other day I'm in an Escalade. Another day I'm driving a sports car.
You can pick a vehicle that suits your needs for a month or a week.
You have access to this entire luxury fleet.
I'll scroll through the app, click it, they deliver it. Amazing.
You have a car, but you don't have any of the hassles of really owning a car.
Where am I going this weekend? Am I going to go visit friends in the country? Am I going to go out to the beach? What car do I want to take with me?
Imagine a world in which Book by Cadillac becomes an option for you wherever you go.
Feeling like you matter equates to luxury.
It's simplifying life. That's what we all want, you know, simplicity.
I love the music. They're so inspiring.
It's very cool. Launching only in New York right now, New York City. $1,500 per month.
Okay.
What that gets you is registration, taxes, insurance, maintenance costs are all included, and there is no limit on mileage.
Wow.
So $1,500 flat, and
are they using the cars that they're trying to sell on the lot, or is it a total different fleet?
I think they look at this as like a miniature lease almost. So
now,
it's a rental, it's a temporary, it's a month to month, and
listen,
you can cancel.
Long term, if you were able to get a lease for a Cadillac Escalade, probably around $800 to $900 a month, but you have to commit to 3 years. So if you're willing to pay a little bit more for the luxury of hey, I want to take my entire immediate family up to the mountains or whatever this weekend, so I'm going to get the Suburban or what have you.
Right. So you can use up to 18 different models per year. So you can change about once or twice per month. But you're right, in an area where it snows a lot or there's a big winter, take the Escalade for a few months. If you decide, hey, I want to go to, during the summer months, I want to get a drop top or a sports car, to be able to have the option to use that is really important. And I think what's going to be exciting, and the time that I would start really starting to consider this, is if you're a business traveler on a regular basis and you can just book and say, hey, when I get to Miami, I want a drop top as soon as I get there, and that's my caddy, and I don't have to worry about returning or whatever. And
New York,
they have the white glove service.
And in New York, at least in Manhattan, in the city, they have a little bit of an issue because everybody uses Uber or cabs and tries to avoid driving at all. But as you expand this to different cities, you can definitely see.
Yeah. And so the age range now, people are less likely to buy a new car because
so the 3-year commitment, I think, with the.
But even just to buy a $5,000 car, in most instances, if you are going to college or you live in a little area where you can walk to a lot of places, you live in the city, you don't need a car. It's a hassle trying to buy a place or find a place that has parking. So for larger cities, major metropolitan areas, it's easier and cheaper to have an Uber because you don't pay for the car when you don't need it. You don't have to worry about maintenance. So
we
as a
flew
way
to New Orleans for the All-Star game, all Uber, from the airport all around town, hotel to hotel.
Yep. And so I think this
Uber
is
Black.
like the luxury version of Uber, where you can use Uber for day-to-day stuff, but once you get to a certain point and you want to have a beautiful car, but imagine all car companies just start opening up to this, and you can just get your subscription model, cancel at any time. 6 months, you're like, Cadillac is cool, but I'd rather check out Tesla's subscription model now.
Yeah, we're going through an on-demand culture. People don't want to wait to 8 p.m. to watch their favorite show on a Thursday on NBC. They want Netflix, they want on-demand, they want DVR. And when it comes to vehicles, even with Uber to a certain extent, I don't want to have to call a taxi and wait an hour. They want that convenience factor. So with these car companies, they can find a way to make it convenient for the end consumer. Now, $1,500, you're talking about people that they have expendable money. These are probably business owners and people that make well over 6 figures to be able to afford that monthly stipend. But the fact that it's month to month as well, like you said, if you go back home to your folks' house and you're staying there for 3 weeks over the holidays and you need a car to go around, you want to kind of go in style and you have a little bit of money, it makes a lot of sense. But you do give GM Cadillac credit for understanding the movement in the space. And let's invest $500 million. It may be a total flop, but we have to try, or we're going to end up being a dinosaur.
And with that investment into Lyft, they're essentially pairing themselves with Google, Apple, and Uber in terms of funding driverless cars.
Yep.
So if GM winds up being on the winning side of that, if you look at software and long-term growth outside of social, I think the development in transportation is probably the area that's most ripe for investment and huge successes.
Yep.
So I'm bullish on GM. I think they're doing a good job of really kind of putting their money where their mouth is and investing in the future.
Well, for one company that is trying to push the limits to continue success in the future, one is having a tough time. We've talked about this on the show before, but GoPro, read this article on Business Insider, and maybe the title is a little bit disheartening for anybody that likes GoPro, but the title is GoPro finally realizes that smartphones can do exactly what its cameras can. So GoPro cut 270 full-time and open positions. That's after they laid off 200 in November, 15% of its workforce. And Woodman, who is Nick Woodman, the founder and CEO, said, quote, "We failed to make GoPro contemporary and failed to align GoPro to the smartphone movement." But you make a good point with they succeeded in this area and they need to just throw their hands up and say, we did what we had to do.
They're a product-based company.
Mm-hmm.
So not every company is going to turn into a huge conglomerate that's a group of companies. Through acquisitions, they do incredible and the future is bright forever.
Facebook, Google.
Right, and those companies have done a really good
Amazon.
job at that. But for something that's product-based, their core product has been GoPro, always, was. But I look at this as a smash hit. I don't go back and look at Seinfeld and think, man, they really failed there at the end because they went off the air. Any TV show that has a spike up and it's got huge amounts of profit and revenue and it makes a lot of people a lot of money, all the early investors.
At a certain point, there has to be a final chapter.
Right. So I think that this, if I look at it, GoPro as a company was a smash hit and probably its time has come. Now, you could argue that, hey, they should have really got into DJI, the drone provider, early, bought them out or competed with them.
Or try to partner with iPhone or Android and put their GoPro technology into the cameras. But in 2015, before things got pretty bad in 2016 and Q1 of 2017, they made $1.62 billion. Nick Woodman is worth $2.25 billion net worth. Like, to your point, you won, young fella. Good job.
Yeah. So what is the realistic lifespan of a company?
Especially technology.
In today's age where technology can put you out of business, I don't think that there's going to be companies that have been around for 150 years. I don't think there's going to be banks that are around forever. New companies are going to pop up. If they're lucky, they're going to be a smash hit. Occasionally, you'll get something with staying power. But if I project out in 50 years, is Facebook still around? Probably not, just because of how fast technology goes. So if I'm a shareholder, if I'm somebody that was there from the early stages, it's about as great as you could hope from an actual physical, tangible product. So I look at that as not the same thing as a Blockbuster. I look at this as more like a Seinfeld. It was a fantastic run. They did really well.
Yeah. And Mike, can you pull that link up I just sent you? I just thought this was super telling. This is a little bit different because, MySpace obviously wasn't like GoPro in the fact that they probably should have done better things to stay on top of the game. And obviously Facebook came in and really undertook them. But there's a tweet that happened. This is a few years ago, but Tom Anderson, who started MySpace, said, quote, "People keep asking, so I'll say it. Fear over Instagram terms change is ridiculous. Get real, folks." One of his Twitter haters says, "Yeah, says the guy that was not able to keep a social network alive." Tom then says the guy who sold MySpace in 2005 for $580 million while you slave away hoping for a half day off. So, maybe Tom didn't want to go head to head with Mark Zuckerberg. Maybe he didn't want to innovate. Maybe he didn't want to invest $250 million for a music conglomerate to try to, add some more, nice things for MySpace users, and just said, listen, I'll take my $580 million and get out. So I don't think if you're not Google, Amazon, and you don't have a 50-year, 100-year trajectory, it doesn't necessarily mean, what the hell? What are you doing, man? You failed.
And those are really difficult situations to look at because the greater network of investors looked at the Facebook try on Snapchat at a $3 billion valuation.
That's crazy.
And they said, Facebook is stupid for, offering that much money, and Snapchat is absurd for not accepting. Those are, small. They were a small company.
But hindsight 2020, it's a blazing deal.
Blazing deal if you really enjoy building a company.
Right.
Now, if you offer that much money to somebody who tinkered around with something and created something amazing and doesn't want to run a Fortune 500 company, and someone offers them enough money to do anything they want for the rest of time and like generational wealth right now, with no possibility for failure in the future, I think there's a lot of people that would say, hey, MySpace was a fun little thing. It was not my passion for my entire life. I'll take my 580 and go and, build schools in wherever. So, but then you got to look at, Snapchat has changed that $3 billion valuation into a $23 billion valuation.
And does GoPro look at it like, so we have sold in the height of our power in the, Q4 of 2014.
But they IPO'd.
Yeah.
All their early investors made their money back. So if they had waited until now when they weren't public,
since their IPO in 2014, the GoPro shares have fallen 76%.
So basically, they let that risk go to a larger pool of individual investors, but all the individual people in the early stages have made all their monies back and have done very well. So in terms of a business cycle, I consider that a success.
You showed me an interesting video in the office this week, and I know you wanted to kind of talk about it.
I do. So this is a video of Gary Vaynerchuk and who's the other guy? I keep forgetting his name.
Who's he talking to? I don't know. If you play it,
we'll play the video. We'll know.
So Mike is going to run that video. This was on his Instagram or?
I saw this on his Facebook page.
Facebook page. Okay.
What's that? I can do that right now.
So essentially, the basis behind the video, he's talking to somebody about international and trying to find ways to tap into an international audience. People forget English is obviously the #1 language worldwide, but
so Gary V is showing Casey Neistat. I think they were traveling together, or they wound up in the same airport. But he's basically showing, hey, this is a quote graphic I made in Russian, and this is the amount of reach, and here's some others in different languages. So, Mike, I just shared that. Is that possible to get up? Okay. Sound? So we're seeing that he's showing it in Russian, 29,000 reach.
Facebook might be able to listen.
So
Facebook can hear this.
For Facebook, you can probably hear. All right, that's fine. So I'm not sure if you were able to hear that on Facebook, but overall, basically sharing with another social influencer.
Thank God for subtitles.
That's right. But Gary V, in his existing audience, is boosting to those who, speak Russian or speak Chinese. People really love his inspirational quotes. So it seems like a no-brainer. Like, hey, just get someone to translate all these in different languages. Clearly, I've got a little bit of a fan base in some of these areas. Let's go in that direction. And it opened my eyes a little bit to thinking, not only for us, but for our clients, is there low-hanging fruit internationally that all it takes is reasonably inexpensive translation service to start putting it out there? And at the very least, is it worth experimenting with? And I think the answer is yes. If you look across the board, too, I can't remember the names, Wemo maybe, but there's a few social media sites that are huge, starting to rival...
In China, Weibo.
Rival the amount of users that Snapchat has and getting up towards Instagram numbers, and I don't know anything about it. Maybe that's foolish, or maybe it just hasn't got enough of an impact, but I really do think looking internationally across the board in terms of social marketing, because it's very easy to tap an international audience where in the past it hasn't been at all.
India has 1.5 billion people, a lot of them speaking Hindi, or why not try to tap into 1.5 billion potential eyeballs? I think the reason why you probably haven't experienced some of the other social media sites is we haven't necessarily had clients that are trying to reach that international audience, but like you mentioned, why not attempt to and see if an award show or a sporting event or a sports team might have 500,000 people out in China that watch them every Sunday and wake up at 2 a.m. to watch the Arizona Cardinals.
And I look at this also as a way to say, so for our U.S. clients, any way that they can tap into an international audience is great. However, the real value could be that if we understand these platforms, we could be the consulting service to an international company who's looking to reach a U.S.
Absolutely.
audience. So we know a lot more about the content that's going to perform well in the U.S. If we're able to go to a Japanese firm who maybe doesn't know and doesn't understand social in the U.S. as much, we could, potentially work on their accounts.
To your point, we're going to talk about this right now, but the Cash Me Outside chick or Salt Bay or whatever the meme may be, like those are the ways you get retweets and get traction on social. But if you're based in India or in China, what's Cash Me Outside? What
doesn't
is
make
that?
sense at all.
You know what I'm saying? Yep. So with that.
So Cash Me Outside, Danielle Brickley is her name. First made an appearance on Dr. Phil. It was one of the typical, my child is out of control. She was aggressive towards the audience, which the young ones always are, and said, "Cash me outside, how about that?"
How about that?
So kind of, threatening the women in the audience who were talking trash to her. But since that appearance, she's turned into a mini social celebrity. And I was shocked to find out this morning that she has 8.2 million followers on Instagram.
Woo!
What that means in terms of...
Wait, what's her name?
Danielle Brickley.
No, but her Instagram name is Beehead.
No, I think it's Bad Baby is what she's trying to go with.
Oh, no.
But it's Bad Baby.
With a bunch of H's.
Yeah,
Okay.
so H is in there. Bad Baby was taken, so she had to throw some H's in there.
Well,
but she's like 14 years old, but 8.2 million is printing money.
Oh, yeah.
You have an incredible amount of reach and impressions for anything you post.
To give you some context, I think the other memeable moment on Instagram right now that's on fire is Salt Bae. He has 5 million followers. Fuck Jerry, which is a great account, 11.5 million followers. But if she has 8.6, three, Oprah has 8.6, Calvin Harris and Ludacris have 8.1. So more than those two guys.
And this is just based off of one episode, but I want to play a recent ad that I saw because I was thinking, well, yeah, but how successful is her reach on a ad? Because, sometimes those cannot be super
Meaning
engaging.
like a sponsorship play where she's shouting out a company or whatever.
So let's play that, Mike. If we can get audio, it'd be great. So if anybody can hear it out there, she's demanding that
the 14-day detox
do the fit tea stuff. Look at the views. 9.8 million views on fit tea. So
Catch me outside drinking fit tea and nothing else. How about that?
Now I can't tell if she is the worst part of social culture or whether she is a genius.
Well,
and this is something that was somewhat orchestrated because Dr. Phil doesn't just find these people in juvie. You got to apply and there's a process. And Dr. Phil knows. I don't think
she probably knew what she was doing.
I agree.
Let me act a fool on national television and potentially become...
And even if she didn't realize it was going to go like that, she thought well, if I'm going to go on TV and people are going to see me, I'm going to get more followers.
Well, who's the most successful person on social media, woman on social media?
Selena Gomez, I think.
Kim Kardashian.
Yeah.
I mean, and what is she ultimately famous for? What's sprung her career?
A leaked sex tape.
So I mean, you can hate all day long, but if you're able to parlay or double down on whatever the case may be, what made you famous, you can't hate on the hustle after the fact. And then Mike, keeping you busy here on this episode 16, the link I sent you or the photo. This is Charlamagne the God on the Breakfast Club. He also does some stuff on MTV, but I guess the producer or the manager for Cash Me Outside texted him. They had his contact. Hey, Charlamagne, any interest in having the Cash Me Outside? How about that? Da-da-da-da. She has 5.6 million back then on Instagram. Top 20 song on the iTunes chart.
So.
And he goes, absolutely not.
This is interesting, though. So this is February 22nd. Go back to that real quick.
February 22nd. Now it's March 22nd. So in 30
days. 1
month.
She went from 5.6 to 8.3.
And she's 13 years old.
So
one of the most talked about TV internet personalities in pop culture, mainstream, and urban right now.
Yeah. So now, I mean, what's interesting, though, is these flash in the pan 15 minutes of fame can theoretically build up an audience really quickly if they capitalize that could provide future value in the tens of millions of dollars. So Cash Me Outside, making some cash. One real quick note, 8.2 million on Instagram, 204,000 on Twitter. So I think that also speaks a little bit to.
I mean, if I had to guess,
the irrelevance of Twitter.
With some of our history with influencers, that Fit Tea Instagram video, the fact that it got 9 million views, I mean, we're talking hundreds of thousands of dollars she got for that.
Absolutely. We've worked with other influencers.
But she does a 30-second ad for Fit Tea, and she potentially could have got $250,000 for a 30-second. 13-year-old just got $250.
Yep. I mean, she's got an audience for sure.
We're blazing through. Only got a couple minutes left, but the retail apocalypse. This is interesting. So more than 3,500 stores are expected to close in the next couple of months. Essentially, the JCPenney's, the Macy's, the Sears, the Kmart's of the world are really dying. This is the dinosaur of the retail industry. Abercrombie & Fitch, Guess, they're either going all in on online and not having the brick and mortar spots, or they failed to realize the importance of e-commerce and they're going to pretty much fold up. What's happening, though, is the Macy's and the Sears and those big department stores really are the backbone of the shopping mall in America. The reason why the Apple store and these smaller retail stores do well is because they have those huge retail stores in the corner of the mall. Essentially what happens when a Macy or a Kmart or one of these big Sears goes away, it voids all the rental agreements with all the smaller shops in the mall, and they're able to bounce and get out of those contracts. So what they're saying is, with all these large retail stores going out of business in 2017, about a third, 33% of all shopping malls across America could close down completely because those retail stores were once so important for foot traffic and the overall profitability of the mall.
Yeah, it's unfortunate because there's a lot of areas in the United States where the mall is like the only thing to go to and do if you're in high school, where there's not a lot of other activities. So that is a bummer, because growing up in, outside of Nashville, the mall was where everybody went after school. You could go to the food court, you could walk around and hang out. But in terms of buying, I can't think of the last time I went to the mall to buy something.
Visits declined by 50% between 2010 and 2013 to shopping malls.
Yeah.
So
I guess out here it's not as bad. Fashion Valley is pretty high end, so you got a lot of people in there, and there's a movie theater. But I can see in the Midwest where this is going to be a really crushing blow, and there's just nowhere to buy anything but Amazon.
All right, so moving on to our final topic is Google puts ads next to terrorist content. Yikes. So I just don't understand how you say, okay, we're going to offer advertisement on all our videos and all this, ability we have to turn ads on, and not have, this is kind of an ongoing thing with this show, not have a backup plan or SOPs. Like, can we make sure that if a terrorist uploads a YouTube video, that a Gillette ad doesn't show up before that, somewhat promoting what's going to happen next? I mean, the fact that they didn't have a fail-safe plan here is insane.
I mean, one of the issues is who determines what's considered terrorist material or not, because if you've got to be a human, you may see some sort of protests in Ferguson and somebody thinks that's terrorist. So that in and of itself provides a really difficult compliance challenge. But even in areas where it's not directly promoting something that's really horrific like terrorism, there's been certain times where I go to look at a story about a, local fire where somebody died, and I'm watching a 15-second ad right before it for a product, and then I go right into a terrible story about death. That's not like you're really promoting the death, but it's prior to a story about something. And
you're connecting a brand to a bad thing, which
right,
you
and
can't
I
get
a negative
subconsciously.
impression.
Yeah, absolutely.
So a few of the people that I've seen discussing this issue have basically said the days of giving digital a pass are over. So I think in the past it's one of those, hey, digital is the new frontier. But if that happened on television, it would be, you'd get your money back.
And you look at the history of television, there's so many advertisers that say, hey, if you don't change the script or change the voice on that, we're going to pull all of our advertising. We don't want to be connected to that. The story here was Havas Group in the United Kingdom pulled all ads on Google and YouTube because they noticed that some of them were with that terrorist content. And to your point, Procter & Gamble has been increasing the pressure, and they say we will stop paying for all digital media unless you can show us the criteria to guarantee we won't be playing in front of one of these terrible, horrific ads.
But I mean,
or videos.
If you're Havas Group, can you really say that you'll just not use Google Display? I mean, I do think Google has a lot of leverage there as well.
Well, Havas pays $216 million a year on digital for their clients.
But if they just get rid of that completely, Google Display, like your reach goes away and your value to client could go away too. So it's gonna be a negotiation. I don't think Google's just gonna automatically say, oh, okay, we'll do whatever you need. They certainly have a lot of leverage here.
And
but
Google,
I don't know how you fix it.
Well, Google came back and said last year we removed nearly 2 billion bad ads from our system. We removed 100,000 publishers from AdSense and prevented ads on over 300 million YouTube videos. So Google's saying we're doing the best we can, but a few are always going to slip through the cracks unless you want a human being to look at every video in its entirety before someone uploads, and that just wouldn't be feasible with the current peer-to-peer network.
It's a brand new world.
There it is, episode 16. We appreciate it on Facebook Live. We urge you to subscribe on iTunes, and also hit us up if you like. Any questions, comments, simple concerns. Brett at STN Digital, David at STN Digital. It's been a good one. We'll see you next week.